ensure. Currently, I didn't change it, but so it's so that this is the shoe. But if you search on YouTube, this will be but make sure that this doesn't make make sure it doesn't change the table also. Another shot.
Can you get it up from there? That's the one. Is that the same? No, it's different. Yeah. You
This has Telegram. I have to copy the link. Is it an L or I?
It's okay, I mean, the table forward. Not much do you want to say? You can try it out.
Or maybe I should just text Eva.
I mean, the sound works. You see, you see the thing goes up. Yeah.
Yeah, then it's cannot hear what they're saying.
Oh, they're using hangout mics. So
Yeah, I know.
something wrong. Because we tried to do this the night before, but it didn't really work out. So probably.
Youth segment. I'm Jiang from Community Chairs and I'll be your facilitator for today. So this youth segment provides a platform for students interested to volunteer for the first time to find out more from the existing volunteers. So I'll first start off with some housekeeping rules. For our participants with us in the Global Lounge, please remain seated at all times. Please do not consume food during the session and keep consumption of beverages to a minimum. During the segment, you can raise your hands if you have any questions during the Q&A segment. Yeah. Please also note that this session is actually recorded and photos will be taken for publicity purposes. At the same time, we are also doing live streaming on YouTube, so public viewers can join us in the session. Thank you everyone for your kind cooperation. So, just a little note from myself. I think this is actually a very safe space for all of us. We are all schoolmates, so I think let's all share our thoughts very respectfully, and then let this session be a very meaningful one for all of us. Yeah, so let's get the session started. So again, I'm Jia. I'm currently working in Community Chairs. So I'm not sure whether you are familiar with it. So we are actually like a centralized body whereby we channel resources from the social service agencies to the people in need. Yeah, so that's basically what we do. Then maybe a fun fact is that actually I graduated in 2019 from NTU. Yeah, so I'm right to say that we are actually schoolmates, right? Yeah, so I think enough of me. Maybe we can get to know our panelists a bit more. So maybe each of you can share like your name, age if you are comfortable, like your organization, what you're doing. Yeah, and also maybe like a fun fact about yourself as well.
Hello everyone, so my name is Kenny. So just a little bit more about myself. I am a very big Taylor Swift fan, so I'm very excited to turning 22 this year.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Trinetra. I'm currently under the WSC Camp Outreach, and a fun fact about me is that I like to journal.
Hi, my name is Ivan. I'm 27. Another fun fact is I'm also from NTU. I graduated in 2021, so it's quite deja vu to be here.
So maybe we get to the second question. So I think we are all here for the same reason, right? Because we all feel the passion for volunteering. So maybe we can get to know a bit more, like what getting you all started on your very first volunteering experience. Yeah, maybe you can get anyone to start first. Yeah, since you have the mic.
So just to background from Samaritan Singapore, it's a non-profit organization. So we do focus on suicide prevention, intervention, post-vention, and crisis intervention, which basically means that it's a holistic approach to suicide and helping those who either are struggling with suicidal thoughts or they lost someone to suicide, and we just help them through like support groups and these kinds of things. So it's a very holistic support system. So in terms of volunteerism, I actually don't volunteer as well per se, but when I was at NTU, I volunteered. And I think one of the reasons, the question is why I volunteered, right? It's actually because I wanted to have a sense of purpose. And I feel like I wanted to do something that was meaningful and give back. I think that sort of transferred to why I'm at SOS as well, because I do feel like I want to be in the social service sector to help wherever I can. And I think that meaning and that purpose just transfers over. Yeah.
Okay, so I shared just now that I'm from WSC Camp Outreach. So why I wanted to volunteer started at a very young age because I really wanted to feel that sense of achievement as well to impact those around me, because I felt that by volunteering I was able to bring like joy and happiness to them and seeing the smile on their faces allowed me to see my purpose in wanting to continue to volunteer. Yeah.
So as for me, I actually organize monthly and bi-monthly beach cleanup sessions at East Coast Park. So what we do there is that I actually lead a community of about more than 50 volunteers. So with that, we actually educate the general public on ocean trash, how you can do better to protect marine life. So how I actually got started on volunteering is actually, I think it will be quite common with everyone, because when you're in primary school, then you're gonna get forced to do volunteer work. So I think that's quite applicable to everyone, especially in Singapore. But then I think a lot of us started out doing volunteer work knowing that it could be something good to add in our portfolio. But I think as time went by, I slowly started to realize how if you participate in all these other events, right, you actually get to learn more about yourself. And I think it's a very good opportunity for you to network and know more people. I think with that you can find like-minded individuals, and together you guys could do a lot more for the environment and for the people around you.
Maybe I also just want to share a bit. So actually, I started off volunteering very differently because I have a very close friend of mine, still in contact. She is my primary school friend. So her mom is actually like a terminally ill patient back then. So that's why, because I have seen someone very close to me experiencing such difficulties in life. So that's why we came together to decide that why not just rally our primary 6 friends to go to hospice, visit her mom, visit other residents there, spend some time with them, then just have fun together. So I think it's really through such episode made me realize that there's so much more that we can continue to give. Yeah, so I think that's also why I'm feeling so much when I volunteer as well. Yeah. Okay, so maybe just want to know also, because I believe that we are all very busy, right? Whether is it you're a student or you're a working professional. So maybe what are some challenges that you all face when you are trying to volunteer? Whether is it time commitment issues, or is it any challenges during the volunteering experiences? You want to share a bit more about all this?
Okay, I can share a bit because I do volunteer with different service users. I'm just not particularly going just for one cause. So I try to spend my time volunteering for different service users. One in particular is the elderly. So sometimes it's quite hard for me because there's that language barrier, because mostly when I volunteer they are Chinese speaking. So that's one of the challenges. But I think continually going to them and just trying to pick up the basic Mandarin, and also using actions and gestures to communicate with them was something that I found out through volunteering, and that experience allowed me to bring it everywhere I go, because I'm able to connect with people now. And I think another challenge is time commitment, because we are all we are busy students and we're not able to really volunteer whenever we can. And whenever I try to volunteer, it's basically a meaningful one because I'm able to give back. Yeah.
So when I first started volunteering, I think same. I did work with the elderly, and I did work with youth communities as well. I think one of those struggles was trying to connect with them sometimes, because when I first started out, it's talk to the elderly, and sometimes what they want is different from what you think they want. You try and talk to them, but they actually just want people to spend time with them. And I think trying to get that connection is a little bit hard at first. But eventually you learn from it, and the more you do it, the more you understand what they kind of want and what is right to do with them. I think in terms of time, that's a very good point as well, because for SOS volunteers, I spoke to the volunteer management team. What some of them actually do to counter this time constraint is they actually fix their schedules for volunteering. So let's say they'll always do a shift at Saturday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. that kind. So what it does is it creates a schedule for them, to the point that they actually feel very uneasy when they miss a session, because they feel like they're missing something in their lives. So I think it's not a matter of making volunteering a side part in your life, but it's a matter of fitting it into your schedule so that it becomes part of your routine. Yeah.
So I think we see similarities between Heyman and Trinitra. It's time commitment issues, and also getting to know how to really address the seniors and other social service users appropriately. Yeah, so it's really learning process along the way. So because Kenny just now you did mention that it's also about learning more about yourself. So not too sure during this process, is there any difficulties? Then you realize that you can actually do certain things, or you realize that you're actually still trying to overcome certain obstacles in this area.
I think for me, I definitely agree with what the previous 2 speakers have mentioned. So I think time management is still a problem for me, I think. But then as I slowly volunteer more, right, I started to realize how it's not about how you manage your time, but it's more about how you know when you're most productive in the day, and making sure that you utilize that period of time, that golden period. So So what I usually tell people when they ask me how I manage my time would be to really know more about yourself and just utilize that period of time that you are best at, the most productive at. But I think perhaps after volunteering and meeting people from all walks of life, right, one other thing that I realized is that I got to learn more about how to better interact with people of different types. So I think when you go for volunteer work, you won't always meet people who are younger than you or people of similar age. So they'll be like from all ages, and then I think it's a very important skill to know how to interact with people across ages and across different demographics. So I think that is one thing that I picked up along the way too. And I think if you're looking towards learning more about that, I think you just gotta get started and you'll slowly get the hang of it.
See, I mean, that's nice to hear about it. Yeah, so like as you continue to volunteer, so like, is there any like special episodes that it really impacted you so much? Like, maybe when you're interacting with this social service user, maybe the words they have shared, or maybe like their responses. Yeah, so I think like, sorry about that. Yeah, so like maybe you can share some of the very heartwarming episodes, because just now we are saying challenges, right? Maybe you can also share of some of these like special episodes that make you feel that volunteering your time is really very worthwhile.
So for me, I think when I was volunteering at NTU, welcome back. So I think one of the experiences for me that was quite heartwarming is that when I was speaking to one of the elderly people, so when I was speaking to one of the elderly people at the homes, I think what they really wanted was just someone to talk to or someone to be with them. It's not always about like, I do pick up skills about languages and you learn how to like speak in different languages, but at the end of the day, I think what they wanted was just company. So just sitting with them and just spending time with them just went a whole long way. This is not as well as this was when I was like in uni lah. And I think something that one of my friends told me was that, so she used to frequently volunteer like week after week. And she didn't come one of those weeks. And like, one of the elderly people actually started crying because she formed a connection with that person. So it's not a matter of like, coming once and then leaving. It's like actually consistently putting in the effort to build a connection with that person. And I think to me that was very striking because it really showed the impact that just a couple of hours a week ago when it comes to interacting with these people. And on the SOS side, actually, I think what a lot of the volunteers feel is that to them, right, seeing the impact that they make on the people on the phone calls, for example, like they can actually like listen in and hear these people making actionable change to maybe to seek help or to try and heal after the struggles that they've overcome. And like for our volunteers, when they hear that like on live, on the phone or like texting someone, it really goes a long way for them as well. So I think it's something that is quite close to their heart. Yeah.
Okay, for me it was actually when I was in primary school. I went on this service learning journey. We went to an orphanage in Sabah, so that really impacted me a lot because the children there really enjoyed our presence. Like they didn't know that we were coming, so when we went in and they all started hugging us, and actually throughout the entire week we were there, they were actually quite welcoming, even though we couldn't like really interact with them or speak with them because we spoke a different language because they didn't really understand English. But we had several activities like craft making and stuff, and that really allowed them to really relax and not be stressed because over there I talked to one of the teachers down there. They said they really didn't have any parents and nobody to turn to, and they weren't really outgoing when we weren't there. So when we went there, they were actually, the teachers were quite surprised because they suddenly become very enthusiastic and lively. So that really impacted me to start like volunteering because I saw the impact I made on these children, and that really left an impact on me. Yeah.
So I think for me, mine will be slightly different from the previous two speakers because when I engage in beach cleanup session, right, I think we don't really have a particular beneficiary in mind. So because it's more of a generic thing where you do do something for the conservation of marine life and for people who use the coastal area. So what was an impression that stayed with me was actually seeing how there are usually many families by the coastal area, bringing their children there, just having fun by the water. So actually, there was this one time when we were doing beach cleaning, and there was this family that saw us picking trash while their children were just running around and then building sandcastles. So what happened after that was that they actually came to us and then requested for additional equipment like the tongs and the rice bag so that they could join in with us also, and at the same time educate their children. And I think that was the spirit of passing it on to the next generation and making sure that the children know about the spirit of volunteering and taking good care of the environment. So that was what stayed with me and kept me going.
So I think just now we shared a lot is your own journey, how you started volunteering and all. So like not too sure whether in your own capacity, do you actually rally along your close ones, your family to also join in? Because I think this will be very relevant, right? Because like I think you all can also maybe share certain pointers how you actually rally along your friends to join you, in your volunteering experiences also. Start with Heyman first.
So on a personal scale, like when I was volunteering here, I think it's what we tried to do is just get one person to one person. If you are volunteering, you try and get one friend to join and then another friend to join, and it becomes an ecosystem where everybody just takes part. Likewise for SOS, I think what we try to do is create a community. A lot of stuff that we do is confidential and the volunteers are anonymous, but within the SOS community, we try and remind people like, you're here for a reason, and they feel very touched because they know what they're doing goes a long way to supporting those in distress. And they themselves try and encourage other people to sign up if they can. And it's really about just trying to create a whole community, starting by one person.
I think it's similar with me too, because Camp Outreach, we work with the deaf, so a lot of people don't really see this disability because it's basically an invisible disability, right? And we don't really know that there's a significant population that are deaf in Singapore. So what I did was actually rally my own family to come down to support and the events that we do and basically learn more about the deaf. So starting with my family and then slowly with my friends, same as Iman over here. Because I guess we just build that community and the outreach as well. Not just ourselves, we are able to reach out further as they share a room with their family and their friends also, so that we are able to go way out and be able to touch more lives and impact more people.
So I think for me, I definitely have tried to rally my family members and friends to come volunteering also, but I think it's slightly harder because it's difficult to gauge what all their interests and passions are. So I think it's very important to know what you're interested in before you commit yourself to doing a certain kind of volunteer work. So I think I realized how it wasn't the most ideal to get people to come to the same volunteer work as you are, because you wouldn't know whether they'll like it or not. So I think what I actually did was just get them to come down and try out one session, and then after that they'll be able to have a feel of what it's actually like. But then I think what we can actually do is to just promote the spirit of volunteering rather than to go down and engage in the same form of volunteer work.
So I think you all definitely face certain challenges in rallying them along. So not too sure whether did they share certain hesitations why they are not starting out volunteering, or some of their concerns lah. Maybe you can get to know a bit more, because these concerns may be also shared by people who are very hesitant to start out volunteering as well. Especially for I think Heyman, because you will face even more volunteers, right, for SOS side. So maybe you will even hear more of these concerns coming from the people.
So in terms of for example, when we do roadshows like these, right, I think a lot of times the biggest concern for most people is time and ability. I think a lot of them feel like maybe they're not equipped to support those in distress, be it on the phone call, be it by texting, whatever. But something we try and remind them is that there is training. We will teach you how to do these things, how to gradually get more confident in doing it. We won't throw you off the deep end and ask you to do it on your own. So definitely skill set is one thing, which is why I feel like it's important, like what you mentioned just now, it's about finding something you're passionate about, just taking one step first. It's not a matter of doing 50 volunteer shifts in 1 week. It's about starting with something that you like and just trying it out first. If you don't like it, you try something else. Because I think ultimately what's important is not just quantity but quality. like knowing what you're good at can go a long way versus you spending 50 hours just doing something for the sake of doing it. So I think skill set is very important. I think time is always like something that people bring up. But like I mentioned previously, like trying to turn it into part of your schedule instead of like a side quest to achieve makes a very big difference lah. It changes your focus on what volunteering is all about. Yeah.
Basically, it's something what I wanted to say lah. But I do agree lah, because it's just taking that one step first, and volunteers find it hard because they might not know what they're getting themselves into. They might feel very scared going into it because they might fear that they might offend the service users. They might not know how to interact with them. But once we sort of talk to them and also share with them what they're going to go through and just give them the little skills that they can just use during their volunteering, that will just aid them a long way. And it's just that first step, like I agree with that. Once you take that first step, I guess you'll just dive way deeper in. Yeah.
I think for me, one of the main concerns that people have voiced out to me is that they are afraid of the commitment issue, or like they are afraid that once they commit, then they always have to be there on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. So I think you gotta know yourself more before you commit yourself to it. So if you're the kind of person that you won't want to do the same thing too many times, or like too repetitively, then maybe you should go towards volunteer work that are ad hoc or like on a one-time basis kind of thing. Because I think there are a lot of different options out there. I think you just gotta go out there, venture, and then find something that will suit you and align with your own values and beliefs.
Yeah, I do agree with what all of you said, because actually there's actually a lot of different types of volunteerism. Besides the service-based, which are more like regularly run, actually there's a lot of ad hoc opportunities out there. So actually a lot of first-timers, you can always tap on them to know whether this is something suitable for you. Yeah, so like you said, ad hoc, those event kinds. If not, I think it's also like what Heyman has shared, it's also definitely there's actually a lot of SSDs that actually provide those training programs. It's more like to orientate you, let you know that you are actually going to interact with this special group of people, whether it's seniors or children with special needs and all, so that you are not at loss. You do not know how exactly to face them. Yeah, so with all these training onboarding processes, then you will know better how to manage them. And then again, like what they have all shared, I think it really takes time to really be at ease with them now, because it takes time to interact with different groups and to learn the best way to really approach them. So I think that's what we can conclude from here. Yeah. So not sure whether you have any other valuable takeaways from your volunteering journey. Then you can also share with the other volunteers as well. Maybe something that you have gained insights about yourself, or it's just it just keeps you going other intrinsic values that you're looking at. Maybe it's Heyman first again.
Intrinsic, I wouldn't say there's a specific one. I think you learn a lot of things along the way. I think one of it to me is just making sure that you have a sense of purpose in what you're doing as well. It goes back to quality again. It's not a matter of me spending a lot of hours doing something I'm not interested in, but for the sake of volunteering. It's a matter of doing something I'm passionate in and knowing what I want to gain out of it. For me, it was finding a sense of purpose. Me volunteering with the elderly gave me purpose because I knew that the time I was spending benefited them because they needed someone's company. Something like that. And then from then on, you just learn a lot more about yourself. Yeah.
I think for me, the main one is whether I can see the smiles on the service users' faces, because I like to volunteer with service users, and being able to see them smile and then realize that we have sparked joy and basically be able to be with them is something that is one of the most valuable takeaways I've had with volunteering. Yeah.
I think for me, I also agree with the journey to self-discovery. I think that is one thing that you will chance upon when you engage in volunteer work. But another thing that I think you'll learn more about when you engage in volunteer work, right, will actually be knowing that you have the ability to make a difference. So once you engage in the volunteer work, you actually get to see the before and after of something that you have done. So just by looking at that, right, like what they have mentioned, seeing the smile on the faces of the beneficiaries, you actually get to know that you have the ability to make a change. And I think that kind of empowers you, knowing that you actually have the autonomy and the ability to make a change and influence the world.
Yeah, so I think that really pretty much sum up a lot of what you really want to share with people who are still sitting on the fence, not knowing whether to start on volunteering. Yeah, so right now I think if there's any, I'll be opening the questions to the floor lah. So I think, maybe, besides hearing from our panelists, we also want to hear if anyone here has any questions to raise. Yeah, so maybe you all can just raise your hand if you have anything to ask. And then for people who are online, I think you all can just comment directly in the comment section. So maybe we need some help from your team to take a look at them. Yeah. Is there anyone who have any questions? I think just now we spoke a lot about hesitations to join concerns also. So if you all, like anyone of you or maybe certain friends share other type of concerns, maybe you all can also feel free to voice out here also. Actually, I think you are all the WSC members, right? So I think you are pretty familiar with volunteering as well, correct? So, or do you all have any special episodes you want to share so that you all can also encourage people who are still very hesitant to volunteer? Maybe that would be better for you all. Yeah, smiling at me means you want to share. Yeah, maybe you want to share something, some of your volunteering experience, like what gets you started and what fuels you on to continue.
Thank you very much for sharing all your experiences. It's like I really learned a thing or two. I guess for me, I don't really do volunteering because I think maybe I'll ask for all the students here too. What happens if like you have very high commitment, but you really want to try something new, but because there's so many social causes that are available and are very interesting, how should I go about to at least select one out of all of them? Thank you.
Does anyone want to take the question? Okay, I'll pass it to Himan.
I think if you don't have one specific one in mind, then I think you can try and choose one that's the closest to your heart. I mean, it sounds a bit cliche, but if you really can't choose between any because you feel like you're you feel like one doesn't resonate with you enough, right? Then the best thing to do is just pick one. Like, you don't have to have a purpose always, but I think it's important to start. And then from there, if you feel like it's not for you, you can go to another one until you find something that means something to you. Then from there, you can take it even further. Yeah. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Yeah. You guys?
Thank you.
Actually, I also want to ask Srinitra, because I think just now you mentioned that you actually support different causes, right? Like you explore your options and then you volunteer. So I'm not too sure whether maybe you can share for different causes, like maybe what kind of, how should I put it, maybe personality type or like activities kind that may suit certain people. Maybe this will let them know more about which cause is more aligned to what they want or what they need or what they are looking out for. Okay, maybe I'm not very clear. I said because I think you support, like you explore different causes, you volunteer with different groups. So maybe you can, based on your experiences, like will you be able to say that maybe certain causes suit people who are looking out for something, like seniors if you really are comfortable with interacting with elderlies, or like if you really like children or something. You get what I mean? Like that direction.
Okay, honestly, it's quite hard to categorize it because it really depends on what you like, what you share, like what you prefer and like what you really want to do. Because ultimately, it's what drives you to continue to do it. So, for example, like elderly, I would say it's just being able to actually take in all what they say, because sometimes it can be a lot. And if you're not the type, if you're the very emotional type and you tend to be too emotional, I think that it might affect you quite a bit in longer term. But you can try it out, and then you see from there whether it's sustainable for you to continue to do it. For children, I would say it's more on like, are you good kids? Like, are you able to not scare them away, or like you're able to interact with them, because ultimately they're still kids and should be able to be at their level as well. So it really depends on, like, again, your interest and like whether you have the time and commitment to continue to do it, because ultimately when you're able to continue to do it, you see the longer term impact, and as well as whether the bond is actually something that I really think that is very important, because once you form that bond and connection, then you find a purpose in life lah. Yeah.
I hope the two panelists answered your question, like in terms of like selecting a course that's closer to your heart. Yeah. So anyone else has any question? If not, you will be the lady next to you. Because you're smiling, so I'm thinking, do you have any questions you want to ask, or do you have anything to share?
Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. So I used to do like quite a lot of volunteering work, but one of the downsides that I find myself in is that sometimes you help them, right? But then you see them in such kind of like struggles. You can't help but feel sad as well. Even though you bring smiles to them, you make them happy, at the end of the day, you still feel this kind of like sorrow in you. So how would you overcome this? Or how should I see this in a different like point of view to help me like not feel this way next time when I'm volunteering?
So in a way, like, although you are trying to help them, but you also feel helpless at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Then in a way, how do you also unload certain negativity that you have like faced, correct? Yeah, anyone would like to take on this?
I think this one is quite relevant. I mean, it's quite recent that I felt this, because it can be quite a lot when you volunteer, right? So what I think is you should have a very good support system with you, and you can share it with either your friends or family, because once you're able to share it with your friends and family, right, you're taking that load off of you, and you're not alone. Because volunteering, I would say you're not alone in anything, because volunteering itself is a community, right? And I feel that once you have that support system, you're able to continually go back to it. I think that will help in a way, and also maybe pen down your thoughts, because reflecting on your journey will also help you to find like why did you start this, and also be able to have a better understanding of why you're feeling this way, because bottling it up inside, you may not know how to express it, or not know why you're feeling this way. So yeah.
I think I'll just add on to what was mentioned. So I think how you can manage that, right, would be to manage your expectations also. Because I think that if you know that that is something that you'll be affected about, right, then you could kind of tweak your perspective a little bit. Because if you weren't there in the first place, then situations would have been much worse. So because you were there, you were able to bring some kind of light into their life already. So I think you must know that you can't totally remove problems from people's lives. So as long as you could have already made an impact or like a positive change, I think that is the first step. And then, although there's still a long way to go, right, I think it's good that we manage our expectations also, because if not, there will always be this mismatch, and you'll never be satisfied at the end of the day.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Kenny said also. I think sometimes we just need to know that we are there to help within our capacity. So that's all we need. Yeah, and also to really give a pat on your shoulder for even being there to help them out. So I think that's a very important mindset. Yeah, then I believe that as you continue to render your service, so you'll be more matured in terms of how to handle all these emotions as well over time. Yeah, so I hope this really helps you to learn how to better cope with all of this.
Thank you.
Okay, not too sure if anyone else have any challenges faced or so that you want to voice out, maybe when you are volunteering and you would like to ask the panelists in terms of their way of coping.
Actually, I have a question. Yeah, mic for me, right?
I think if you can hear me.
Okay, great. So I actually have a very specific question maybe to Heyman. So I want to ask if there's anything I should consider before becoming a volunteer, because I understand that working with SOS, you're working with people in distress, right? So is there anything that I need to think about before I actually commit to the role?
I think that's a very good question, first of all. I think it relates a little bit to Kenny's point about thinking about the topic at hand. So for example, suicide prevention, right, crisis intervention, if you feel like certain topics related to this is a bit of a trigger for you, maybe take a step back and think about it first. If you feel like it's something that you can handle, definitely apply first and then take it from there. Time management is very important as well because for SOS, we do have like a certain number of hours you will need to clock as a volunteer. So you'll be, so like the point that I mentioned previously about how volunteers sort of put it into their schedule and make it part of their schedule instead of just making it like a side thing to do lah. Ensuring that you have enough time mentally, emotionally, physically, you're able to take on these calls. Because I think a common challenge that some of our volunteers face is that it can be quite emotionally and mentally taxing. So back to your point as well, because I think at the end of the day, if you feel a little bit overwhelmed, the important thing is to step back and just take care of yourself first before you can help others. So what our volunteer management team does is they actually ask our volunteers to just take a step back, to take it easy and just internalize it first before coming back to volunteer, because it can really take a toll. So I think most importantly, before any cause that you want to volunteer for, it's important to just assess whether you're ready to take on that challenge first, and then from there, if you think you are, take it one step by step. Yeah.
Actually, I want to ask, when you say that to assess whether you are able to take on as personally you will assess, or that the team, the volunteer management team will also assess?
It's a little bit of both. So I think in terms of like personal stance, if you feel like this is something that's very close to your heart and you feel maybe you've had a personal experience with something, maybe not related to suicide prevention, but something else, and it's something you're not ready for, then you can take a step back. But for SOS, before we do accept volunteers, we do have like a interview system as well, just to make sure that you feel like you're ready to take it on as well. So yeah, there are two levels to that in a sense. Yeah.
I hope that answer your questions. Okay, that's great. Yeah, anyone else has any question to raise, like to the panelists? Or is there any questions that's posted online actually?
I have a question. So how do you, like it's open to all the panelists, how do you sustain the spark for volunteering and prevent burnout? Yeah, what keeps you going?
Maybe Kenny, you can start first.
I think that's a very good question. Thank you for it. So I think a lot of time when you engage in volunteer work, you'll find yourself being burned out, and I think that is very true and very applicable. But I think one way you can overcome that, right, is to actually remember why you first started out. I think it's very important. Like as long as you have that purpose, right, I feel like for me in my own case, it became like a personal compass. So you know, when you get tired, when you feel lost, but then once you remember why you started in the first place, why the reasons of you taking the first step in the first place, I think that is something that will keep you going. Because you know, like what I said, I think perhaps it's also my own belief system because I know that I have the ability to make a change. So with that, it's kind of hard to veer off from that in the first place. So I hope that maybe you could remember why you first started volunteering in the first place. Then I think that will be a very good guide or compass for you.
I think to add on is also whether your volunteering is tagged to your belief system, whether you believe in it. Because if once you don't believe in it, right, you won't want to go back to it. You won't find a purpose, you won't find a meaning to do it anymore. And also whether you can schedule it to your whatever timetable you have also, because volunteering takes time and it takes a lot, can take a toll on you also. So if you're able to get a routine out of it, and maybe let's say once a month you go volunteer, and then that in itself is already an achievement because you did it once in a month. So I guess also volunteering, it's not just a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. So even if you do it once a year, that's an achievement in itself already. So finding the time is very important as well. Yeah.
I would summarize it into 2 points. The first one is to pace yourself. Don't overcommit if you feel like you can't, because that'll lead to burnout a lot quicker. I think the second thing is to celebrate the small wins day to day. I mean, it sounds a bit weird out loud, but I think recognizing that maybe if you went to volunteer and you feel like you only did like 40% of your capability, 40% is better than 0% if you didn't start in the first place. So I feel like remembering that every action, big or small, goes a long way to the people you're helping is another way to just remind yourself of the purpose of what you're doing.
I hope that answer your question as well, like whether how do you prevent burnout during volunteering. Yeah, so like not sure anyone else has any question to raise also, or like I don't know, or anyone else you can share your personal volunteering experiences also, since you are all from WSC as well. Yeah, maybe this gentleman here. I see you smiling. Do you have anything that comes to your mind? Yeah, maybe you can share with everyone here.
So for me, right, my experience for volunteering isn't that vast, but I think I have some things to share in terms of helping the community of mental health, where the children are autistic, and it's quite saddening to see that although we are here so fortunate with our let's say our innate abilities that we take for granted, they cannot perform the simple tasks that we perform from day to day. So I believe that if the spirit of volunteerism is to basically take a step forward for us to take advantage of what we have that's fortunate for us to help these people. And for example, right, I went for this event to help at Rainbow Center, where if you knew that the children there will graduate after 18 years old and they cannot really stay after to continue to be in the school, right? That's why there are weekly events where these graduates comes back and we can basically make their day or even make their week, because some of them cannot even perform their tasks to go out to work after graduation. So basically they are always cooped up in the house without any stimulation of activities. So I believe if we can have more resources to target these kind of people that are forgotten in our society, they really prove our spirit of volunteerism. With that being said, I have a question for you all, but it's regarding our innate bias when we handle new social service groups. And I would like to ask, how would you all handle or express yourself in a non-judgmental or unbiased way to someone new that you may encounter in the future?
Anyone would like to take the question? It is some time to think.
Sorry, to clarify, you mean if you have an internal bias and you meet someone of that bias, how would you go about behaving? Is that right?
Yeah.
Understand. As in, ultimately, I feel like, I mean, of course, having a bias is not good, right, all the time, but I think in terms of volunteering as well, it kind of puts things in perspective. So, for example, let's say someone's volunteering with someone with special needs, and in the back of your mind, you're like, I can do all these things, but this person cannot. Like, how do I cope with that? But by volunteering, I feel like you are doing a very good job in the first place, because your bias is at the back of your mind, but your actions are showing that, regardless of that bias being at the back of your mind, you're still trying to support them wherever needed. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but essentially it's about recognizing the bias that you have, but still trying to put in the effort to help them. Yeah.
It's a very tough question for me to answer, but I think, like what you said, putting it at the back of your mind, and like when you volunteer, you just don't think about it, because once you think about it, then the things you do for them during the volunteering might already like maybe harm them in a way. Maybe that's the wrong word to use, but yeah. So for me personally, at first when I volunteered with the deaf, I was actually a bit hesitant, because I thought, they will turn out a certain way. There's like already that I already compartmentalized that they'll be like this. But then when I volunteered with them, I actually didn't think about it. And when I interacted with them, then I realized that what I thought was wrong, and I shouldn't have thought about it that way, because then I'm just not giving I'm doing a disservice to myself, because I am shutting out a person who has a lot of capabilities, and I'm not able to actually help them or like basically interact with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add on to the front part of the statement that you made, because you were mentioning how those who have autism, after they go past a certain age, then there's no longer like a school for them, right? So like how can we go about allocating more resources for these for forgotten demographics? So I think one way you can go about doing that is actually, you know, if you can't find something that suits you outside, then why not you just start one on your own? Because I think if you were to start like a whole new volunteer work on your own for like a part of the society they think is forgotten, right? I think starting it within the school would be a good idea, because this is where you get all the guidance and resources from. So I think that is probably one area you can look at if you feel strongly about the forgotten demographics or group of people that you mentioned about.
Maybe I just want to add on to the very difficult question posed lah. I feel that it's normal, right? I mean, we are all humans. Naturally, we will have certain perspective towards everyone. I believe that applies to everyone and not just service users. So that's why it is normal. That's the first thing. And I think the fact that you are actually aware is actually an important thing, because you are aware. That's why through the process, then you will realize whether you are right or wrong. Like just like what Trinitra said, she realized that she's wrong about certain groups. So I think this is also a learning process about yourself, about the people. So I think it's not a bad thing to have it in the first place, as long as you gain insights about it after the whole process. Yeah, so that's my take for it. Yeah, so I think actually from here we actually can wrap up the Q&A. I think it's about time. Yeah, so just really want to thank everyone for participating in this Ignite Your Spark Youth segment today. Yeah, I think although a lot of you also have your own personal volunteering experiences, I think it's very meaningful sharing, right, with the panelists here today. So also very, very thank you to all the panelists for sharing your knowledge and also your experiences with everyone. Yeah, so I think we can keep a lookout for the events, activities of the Social Impact Week that will continue tomorrow as well. Yeah, then right now I think it's like the next one will be the networking session, so please feel free to stay on and enjoy. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hi guys. So we have food prepared for you at the back, so you can grab one, and feel free to mingle amongst each other and engage with our people.